On April 28, 2024, just before 7 a.m. our house was hit by a strong wind force that ripped our chimney off. It used to come out the roof there and runs down the inside of that wall between my daughter and mother-in-law's rooms. It was dropped or fell on our patio roof and bounced into the yard there. The wind was so strong that it sheared a stop sign at ground level roughly 700 feet from my house. From what we found researching online, it takes 80+ mph winds to do this to a stop sign, with some sign sites suggesting 150+ wind speeds. There was a tree that snapped at the trunk about halfway between our house and the stop sign. And there was another snapped tree a few houses that way. These are branches that broke, but the trees were snapped at their trunks. There is a report of tree damage in Garrison Park as well as wind damage in Sunset Valley. There was obviously a huge gust of wind that blew through South Austin that morning. Let's look at where the chimney landed. The chimney cap was smashed flat here under the chimney. The way it was smashed, the only thing that makes sense to me is that the chimney landed cap down, bounced and spilled its contents, then landed on top of the mess. I climbed up on the patio roof so we can get a better look. This window is my mother-in-law's room. The chimney is supposed to come out right up here and runs right behind this wall. You can see stress marks at the 2x4s on either side of the chimney. While adding the text-to-speech to this clip, I noticed two openings. This one, which is to the left of the chimney, coincides with a crack that's in the upstairs hallway. This next crack is just above my mother-in-law's window. Let's go take a look under the patio. This is where we think the chimney hit first. This piece of roof decking was busted right at the seam here, giving us a nice little waterfall whenever it rained. You can see where this outside board has detached. I showed Thomas Brady, our first adjuster, this on May 3rd. Anytime you showed Mr. Brady anything, his response was always one thing at a time. He also claimed there wasn't any damage to this roof. We've either have the world's softest chimney or the strongest roof. And every single rafter looks like this. You can see where the rafters bounced or vibrated against the hangers. You can also see where they have all slide back and forth. The scraped paint should have been a dead giveaway. I'm going to show you two images I found in my iCloud that our son took of his forehead on the back porch. The first shows the rafters in front of the fireplace in their original position before the wind damage we sustained on April 28. The second shows the rafters in front of the back sliding glass door. Let me tell you a story about Hunter, our second adjuster. It took 4 months before we got a new adjuster assigned, despite multiple requests. I will say Hunter communicated better than Mr. Brady. He did admit early on that he wasn't sure what to do, and his supervisors were not sure either. He assured us that he would figure it out. I'm not sure what there was to figure out. But okay. He asked us if we could get another bid, that may help. We declined, telling him we've already provided two, having to pay a $100 service fee for the second one. He then came back and tried the same thing as Thomas, telling us that we can have someone build the exhaust pipe. We told him that is not true, and doing so would lose the UL listing for the fireplace. He then asked us to prove that True Heat is out of business and the parts are no longer available. When we asked how do we prove that, he said we should get a letter from them. We responded with, why don't they prove that the parts are still available, and we would be more than happy to order them. A couple of weeks went by and then he asked if he could come by to inspect the damages. We happily accepted because we thought he was coming to finally assess all the damages to our house. He came by on October 31st, about an hour early to avoid my roofer. There was a quick friendly greeting at the front door, then we went straight to the backyard. I stopped on the porch and asked Hunter what we were going to do about the patio rafter moving. He looked me dead in my eyes and said he wasn't here to look at that. He was only here to look at the chimney. The chimney that's been in the yard for 6 months. I didn't want to go to jail, so I went inside and upstairs until he left. Which wasn't long. He was on a fishing trip and was trying to avoid the roofer. He spent about 10 minutes taking photos of a chimney they took photos of on May 3rd. I'm convinced he was looking for something other than the wind to blame all the damage on. He spent all of 30 seconds looking at the fireplace downstairs. He didn't even go upstairs, much less into the attic. What was his purpose there that day? We called our local agent, Stephen, after I had cooled off. We explained what had took place on the back porch. Stephen told us that we were just adding things on. Then he hinted at insurance fraud but followed it up with he isn't saying that's what we are doing. He then told us he doesn't have to help us or answer our calls. Unfortunately, we are unable to switch insurance companies with the house in its current state, or we would have that day. Stephen broke my heart. Up until that point he was the only person that we felt was on our side. This is what prompted us to file the complaint with TDI. Let's take a look at the fireplace. Both of the boards on the fireplace header are broken. The breaks are on both the front and back of both boards. The front board's crack goes from one end to the other, assuming this header doesn't stretch over the window next to the fireplace or the sliding door on the other side of the fireplace. If we look between the board we can see the cracks on both the front and back boards. I do not think the headers should be cracked, much less cracked all the way through and from side to side. Let me tell you another story while you look at these cracks. After Stephen said what he said, we call State Farm to file a complaint on Stephen and see about getting our local agent changed. They kept transferring us to adjusters. The first adjuster told us we should open a new claim every time it rained and the house was flooded due to the chimney missing. This isn't the first person with State Farm to try and do this to us. We called back and got another adjuster. We told him we didn't want to talk to him, that we wanted to file a complaint on Stephen. He persisted, so we told him everything and he seemed to be listening. He said he had an adjuster that has been doing this a long time and he wanted to send him out to look at everything, not just the chimney. We agreed. Next, I'm going to show you the broken floor joist to the right of the fireplace. I believe the 2x12 that was shattered is holding up the wall above it. These floor joists only have this board along the outside walls. You can see the cracks better in person. Here you can see where the crack split the grain on the end cut. The bottom of this crack splits into a V. The crack spans the entire length of the board. It's not one solid crack but rather a series of staggered cracks. Here you can see a break with cracks going in every direction. Sorry, the lighting is not the best and it's hard to get the cracks to show up on camera from this angle. I hope you can see the cracks at the end of the board. I'm going to show you the other side of the board. The phone did a much better job of capturing the extent of the damage done to this board. I believe this was damaged when the tornado decided to play tug-of-war with my chimney. I can only see cracks on a few of the ceiling or floor joists. The others are too far away to get shot of without cutting another hole in the ceiling. I cannot see to the back of this board due to insulation, however, I think it is safe to assume this damage continues to the end of the board. This board has a crack in the end grain that almost goes all the way through. I cannot see the back side, but from what I can see the crack looks small. If it wasn't for the damaged joist I just showed you, I wouldn't even give this one a second look. You can also see a crack on the board closest to the camera, starting at the top just left of the metal bracket. There's also a crack at the board behind it. It looks like every one of these boards from the shattered one to the right all have cracks. This is also where the damage is in the attic. You can follow it from the ripped-off chimney and peeled shingles on the corner of the roof, down through the attic, through the second floor's floor and of course to the fireplace. Here is the joist just to the right of the fireplace. There is a crack about halfway up the back of the board and runs up to the metal brace. This 2x4 in the chimney is also cracked. There is the shattered joist. If you follow it back to this corner, you can see where a crack has opened up. We didn't notice this until after the incidents with Hunter and Steven. We had lost all faith in our good neighbor, State Farm, and started doing a little more research. One of the suggested things to look for, with the damages we described, was cracks in the sheetrock. It was also suggested that we mark the crack start and end points to monitor for spreading. Let's go upstairs and look at the crack in the hallway. This is my daughter's and my mother-in-law's rooms. The chimney runs up and out the roof between these two rooms. You can see the crack runs about 4 feet in front of their rooms. Before State Farm denied the damages I've shown you until now even existed, now they are saying, yes, the damage exists, but there is no way wind could have caused it. As far as I know, foundation movement does not cause 2x4s to bounce in their hangers. And the paint peeling would need a quick sudden movement. The only kind of movement that would cause those damages would be an earthquake. So is State Farm trying to sell us the idea that an earthquake did this damage? Though earthquakes do happen in Texas, none have been close enough to Austin to cause the damage we see. How many bounce marks can you see on this board? I count 5. But do you know what can cause these kinds of damages and was suspected to hit South Austin on April 28? A tornado. Which is what Megan reported seeing to State Farm on her initial call around 7 a.m. that morning shortly after the incident. This is my daughter's closet. The chimney runs up through the left side of her closet. The right wall here is the exterior wall. You'll see 2 openings. We reported to Thomas on his second visit that we could see water dripping behind the upper opening and were worried about mold growing back there. He told us that the air dryers that we had would dry it out so we didn't have to worry about it. Then he told us how State Farm got sued over a mold claim and now they no longer will cover any damages if they find mold. He recommended that we do not say mold, growth, or anything like that. Even with the dehumidifiers running, mold could still have formed because dehumidifiers primarily reduce ambient humidity but may not have fully addressed moisture that was trapped in porous materials like sheetrock and insulation. These materials can absorb and retain moisture for a longer period, creating a hidden environment where mold can thrive. Additionally, if the water intrusion affected areas that were difficult to reach or dry completely, such as behind walls, mold could still develop in those areas, despite the general efforts to lower the humidity. Mold typically starts growing within 24 to 48 hours of moisture exposure. There were numerous small leaks throughout the attic, and the damage was visible both inside and outside. Regarding the mold, on May 16, we discovered white growth above the fireplace header. Out of concern for what Thomas had said about the claim being denied, we didn't report it to State Farm. However, we immediately contacted ServPro, who not only cleaned the affected area but also assisted us in ordering a product to treat any future growth that might appear. Here is my mother-in-law's room, Layla, or Grandma. State Farm has been made aware since the beginning that Layla has COPD. They also know my wife is restricted to a wheelchair to get around. Neither of them can be in a house that is having construction work done to it. We were offered a single hotel room for all of us. We told them there are 7 of us and no hotel is going to allow 7 people to stay in one room. Shortly after the house was deemed livable, the black foam you see was my unsuccessful attempt to prevent water from entering the house. This hole was originally much smaller. It was cut just big enough to allow the fan to blow air in and help dry the area. I had ServPro enlarge it enough to fit a 5-gallon bucket to catch any water during the second service call. They had already removed their equipment and had to bring it back. This happened 3 times. ServPro was the only company State Farm sent out that we would ever allow back to our home. The back wall with the water damage is in my daughter's room. The paint in that room would become spongy whenever it rained but would firm up again once it dried. We cannot see the back side of her closet wall because it is the home's outside wall.
Now let's look at the floors that got flooded multiple times but State Farm now says are undamaged. Thomas Brady, the initial adjuster, saw the damage and documented it on May 14th. This room was flooded again on the 16th. The floor is bowing up at the seams in multiple spots along this wall. Another clear sign of water damage. When it started to rain again on May 16th, we were hopeful because we just had the roof tarped. I went upstairs to check for leaks and didn't see any. We were happy at least the water stopped. At some point that afternoon during the storm, the new tarp failed, and water started coming in. We were all downstairs and didn't realize there was an issue until water started dripping through the floor onto an air mattress one of my daughters was on. There was so much water coming in. I was in there with buckets, pots, pans, and pitchers trying to catch as much water as I could. If I had known that State Farm handles things this way, and if my wife didn't have 26 years of memories built up in this house, I wouldn't have tried to catch a single drop. I would have acted helpless. I wouldn't have climbed a metal ladder on a wet floor during a storm to reach into an attic with a huge hole to catch water. I wouldn't have used a shop vac to remove water from between the flooring and the wall. My shop vac and ladder would have stayed in the garage. Not really, but like a good neighbor, let's move into the attic. This first image is the truss to the left of the fireplace and is directly above the shattered one downstairs. If you follow that board up a few feet, you'll find this broken piece. Before I show you some more damaged trusses, let me show you some damaged roof decking that was right in the hole in my mother-in-law's room. The crack is easy to see in the first image. In the second image, you can see a few cracks on the lower middle right side. In the last image, the cracks are on both decking boards. The upper board has a couple of smaller cracks and the lower board has a longer one. Here is a broken truss at the corner of the roof above my daughter's room, and a few more near the chimney. I'm also going to show you a couple of images of trusses that have moved about the same distance the patio moved. I only looked at the boards I could easily get to. I didn't think I needed to do a roof inspection myself. I haven't looked in the attic over the game room due to it only having a small access hole and the AC duct passes through it. I didn't dig out any of the insulation to check the boards running along the ceiling in the attic either. I did a quick assessment and found all of this. The only other person that I know went into the attic was the structural engineer that State Farm sent out after I said I was looking for one and one would need to write off on the repairs of the engineered trusses. He was only up there for a few minutes, so I know there's no way he crawled into the other side of the attic.
First, with Insurance Hero, then I'll circle back around and have a conversation with you to say, hey, I spoke with them about
Man, that
whatever.
would be more than anybody else has done up to this point.
Okay.
I want to thank you for actually listening.
Oh,
Yeah.
my pleasure. Yo, we're gonna get
The last two were like, eh.
No, I'm not even
Next.
kidding, man. Hunter walked out on that back porch, and I was like, what about these rafters? He looked me dead in my eye and said, I'm only here to look at the chimney.
And I'm sorry about any.
That hurt my feelings
Sure.
a lot.
I understand. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you didn't get the service that you feel that you should have received.
Yeah.
And hopefully from this point forward,
So
I don't know if you'll get the result that you're looking for, but I will tell you this: I will keep in contact with you.
we just want our house put back. That's
Sure,
it.
and I understand that, and I'm
on the rafters. Who's gonna be going up there to look at those?
that's what I'm saying. I don't have the access to do that. I'm going to present that to my manager, and then I'm going to circle back to see what that remedy is. Okay, I I have a 20-foot ladder. Okay, I have limitations. I can't use like a kitchen step stool, that kind of thing, because of we have Pacific.
What kind of
Safety.
ladder do you need?
Well, I have a 20-foot fiberglass.
I got a 6-foot ladder.
It has to be OSHA certified, and that's what I'm saying. I have to let me see first. I might have to come back out here. Don't know. But
I just don't want the roof or damage to keep spreading. Because if this is significant structural damage and it keeps spreading, that's going to suck for everybody.
Is there a way that you can get a structural engineer?
When the repair has to be done, they have to come in anyway because their engineered truss is...
we're not there yet.
Yeah,
we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We're still in the investigation stage.
Yeah, but
Okay?
that guy will come at the end.
So, we're in the investigation stage. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to speak to what has to happen or not have to happen as of yet. But I am going to speak. I want to finish the ALE. We call ALE, additional living expenses. I just want to make sure we have an understanding. Right now, State Farm Insurance, your policy does not recognize the house as it sits in its current capacity as uninhabitable, partially or wholly. Okay.
Thank you, Thomas, number one.
Well, that's not because of him.
No, it 100% is. He never addressed any of the issues we were
Well,
telling him about the back porch. or anything else.
Right.
All he cared
It
about
should've
was
been
that
done
chimney.
7 months ago.
But it's still not
But you're still
uninhabitable.
under investigation.
Uncomfortable is not recognized in the policy. Okay, it's not. You know when you have, I don't see anything that's saying that wow, the doors are, the doors like they're about to fall in, that kind of thing. This is a hard hat area. City of Austin would not say this is a hard hat area. Okay, I can guarantee you that. You have all your function of the home. Okay, it's not what it was prior to the event. Granted,
We're just one room short. Yeah.
even that does not make the house uninhabitable. Okay, it makes it uncomfortable.
It makes it extremely
And
uncomfortable.
I'm gonna move.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move towards getting this resolved.
I hope, yes.
Whether it's,
Man, that's all we want.
I understand, and whether it's resolved to your liking 100% or not,
We just want fairness. That's it.
I can't predict that.
Yeah, we're
I can't
not
predict
trying to
that.
win over on nobody. We just
I
want
have not-
fairness.
I have not
Fair.
made any of
Fairness.
those. I'm
Yeah.
just, hey,
We just want to make sure it's
I
safe and
right.
it's fixed to
I understand.
the best ability.
I understand what we're
That's it.
looking for. What I'm going to do now, I make notations, and then it won't be this morning. I have another appointment.
Yeah.
But what I'm going to do, I'm going to make my notations, schedule a meeting with my manager, and then probably Monday, just to give it fair. I don't know what his schedule is versus mine. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes,
it's
sir.
pleasure
I have a
meeting you.
question.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the chimney, so they got approved. We gave them a bid on the chimney. They got a bid from somebody else.
We pay
I
for
guess-
all that.
So I guess I guess they're saying that they can only use a certain.
Yeah, we were told we can only use an absolute chimney.
No, you don't. You can use you. We don't.
Okay. Well,
You
if you're
can
getting
use-
that big,
you can
because
use anybody.
Hunter said only if I use absolute. He wouldn't let me use him.
No, look,
We-
they
we-
told me, because I was talking to them, they said, okay, so I was approved. He goes, yes, but you have to sign the contract with Absolute Chimney, and then send that contract to us, and then we'll pay you the check.
Well, I don't know if you heard it all right or not, or what he
That's
said.
what he said, and I made
That's
sure, and I asked him again and
We can
again.
pay you all the money up front with a signed contract.
From Absolute Chimney?
We accepted the bid from them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're assuming there's an invoice or opportunity for a contract. If you sign the contract with them, we won't hold back any money on the chimney.
But what if I wanna hire
You,
him?
you can hire the guy across the street.
As long as he writes up a contract and I send it to you?
It is at our price or below. Yes.
Okay.
We State Farm.
Okay,
does-
cause that's
State
what I
Farm
thought,
does not-
No,
we can use
the
everybody
chimney
want.
babe, he didn't see that because that piece of sheetrock was still over there
Oh,
with
he
the
didn't see
busted
this?
Well,
header.
we have a signed contract.
We have
Cool.
a bid.
Yeah, we have a bid.
Right. It's pretty. I'm going to tell you. Well, I'll address that when the time comes. But right now,
Well, we have a
right.
bid.
Right. It's pretty. I'm going to tell you. Well, I'll address that when the time comes. But right now,
Well, maybe we call him. Are you saying that he may go ahead and put the header in with his initial bid?
you're saying that there's some structural damage
So
to
we
that.
need
Yeah.
to figure out if that's
We need to resolve that. I would not do anything else with
Until we
that.
find-
I didn't
figure
want
that
to
out,
do the
yeah.
chimney until this was checked
You're
out.
dried in now. You don't have any.
Yeah,
harm
that
of
was our
water.
big thing.
So,
See, stopping that water, man.
So
I
We
no
had
more
to.
waking up at
Niagara
2 in the
Falls is
morning.
coming in our
what
house.
I'm gonna tell, I'll just be perfectly honest with you. Instead of re-roofing the house, the appropriate thing was to dry it in. Would be to deck it, felt it, and then temporary shingle over this chimney opening. That would be the
But
proper
We had
way.
water
We
coming in
walls
up higher
coming
than
all
the
way
chimney.
around From the tarp.
Yeah, there was water coming in from way up here. I've got video of it.
But there's some remedies to that too, is what I'm saying. I mean, you're a roofer. There's remedies to that. Who tarped it?
Somebody else
State
come out,
Farm.
and then we came out.
No, State Farm never charged.
No, y'all didn't tarp it.
Y'all
We
said
got
y'all
we got an
emergency.
emergency relief
I
number
called
from
y'all,
them.
or called, not you, but
Yeah,
called y'all,
State Farm.
and
They
they
say
sent
call
out
not-
somebody for an emergency patch. And they shoved
That guy
it in
did.
there.
Yeah, he didn't even. He didn't even patch
And
it.
so water was
But
just coming in.
it was a steep roof, and the guy was scared.
Yeah, nobody wanted to
I
get
don't.
up there.
Yeah. The fire department was
His
all.
guys came with what, bungee cords and.
No, we know that we did it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
But I mean,
we're
you get
licensed
out
certain
there,
ones, we're certified.
You
You
have to
be
use
licensed,
bungee
but-
cords.
Well, we are,
because
yeah, we
nobody
are.
can stand
Yeah.
on that roof.
Yeah.
Got
They were safetied in.
Let me get to a spot where I can get back
Yeah.
with next steps.
Yeah. No.
The next
Yeah.
step for me is discussion with my manager. The next step after that is to have a conversation with you about
Okay.
it.
Awesome, man.
All right.
Again, man,
Yeah,
appreciate
no
your
problem,
time.
no
We hope
problem.
you have a blessed day.
Yeah, you as well.
Thank
you, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you all
sir.
so much. Y'all take care. Good to meet you
Thank
again.
you for your
All
help.
right, my pleasure. Y'all have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. I will. Thank you.
Hey, Ernie, you're not scared of her, are you?
She has a cone on, she can't get to you. She's in a cone of shame.
So, I mean,
I had a different conclusion to this video, but while I was looking for the house info image from 1984, I found a report that needed to be addressed. And to be honest, it makes for a better conclusion. So let's get into it. When Thomas number 2 was here on November 21st and didn't want to go into the attic, we were in the hallway discussing the damages I saw up there. I guess he heard us when we said we would have a structural engineer look at the house and sign off on any repairs. He told us that he'd call us Monday after he talked to his manager. This was on Thursday, around 10:15 a.m. At this point, a few days isn't a big deal. It's already been 7 months.
You're dried in now.
And there's that. We're not worried about being flooded again. We just want the house fixed. He called back within a couple of hours, saying that he has a structural engineer he would like to send out on November 30th. We had been calling around looking for a structural engineer with some kind of forensic type experience. The ones we could find who had litigation experience were months out and started around $3,000. He said it was a neutral party, so we happily agreed. You'd think we would have learned our lesson by now. This is the first page of the report from Edward M. Simpson, P.E., with Simpson Engineering out of Dallas, Texas. His Texas professional engineer license number is 52424. Let's take a look at the first page. He goes over what we have already discussed. He repeatedly says the chimney could not have caused the damage. However, we never said or insinuated that the chimney caused the damage. Instead, we've said that the storm that damaged our chimney caused the other damages. He goes on to say, the attached site-specific wind report does not show wind gusts or sustained winds in excess of 40 miles per hour on April 28, 2024, at the James House. The thunderstorm event of April 28, 2024, in Travis County is described in the attached report from the NOAA Storm Events database. The report states that several trees were knocked down by estimated 70 miles per hour winds in Garrison Park, which is located 2 miles northeast of the James House. Well, Mr. Engineer, on the topic of the suspected tornado that hit Garrison Park and uprooted and broke some trees, I told you that a stop sign had been snapped off at ground level up the street from me, and there were some trees on my street that had their trunks snapped. What caused those damages? What snapped the power poles in Sunset Valley? On your wind data chart, you don't show anything for April 28th, the day in question, much less a wind report from, say, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., or better yet, pull the 911 call my wife made that morning, stating a tornado had just hit our house, and pull the wind data for that time. All the wind data we've found takes wind speed readings every 1 to 20 minutes, depending on the system being used. We have a few home stations in my neighborhood, but none even registered significant wind during those storms. I hope you're not relying on those local readings for reliable data. I'm not sure where else the wind speeds at my address at the exact moment the damage occurred would come from. The front that blew in, which caused all the storms, only took a few seconds to pass over the house. It didn't linger for 30 minutes waiting to have its photo taken. Something else really bothers me with this wind report. We were told Mr. Simpson was an independent professional engineer, but the weather report was made a few days prior to his visit and has State Farm's name at the top, not Simpson Engineering. Let's take a look at page 2, Inspections and Analysis. Mr. Simpson said, I inspected the interior and exterior of the house. I find no evidence of structural movement or damage anywhere in the house. Detachment of the rooftop chimney box could not cause structural damage to the roof or walls of the house. Inspection of the attic space revealed no structural damage or displacement caused by wind or chimney detachment. He then goes on to say, inspection of the attic space revealed no structural damage or displacement caused by wind or chimney detachment. There is no structural damage in the wall or floor truss framing, regardless of cause. No repairs are required. The owner also found a surface split at a roof truss metal plate connector. This split was caused by handling during shipment or installation. It is non-structural and does not require repair. Let's see if what he says matches up with what we can see. First, let's take a moment to look at the elements of a roof truss. We will be focusing on the top cord, web, and truss plate. This would be photo 32 of his report had they shared it. No worries, I've got some I'll show you in a minute. The top cord is described as an inclined or horizontal member that forms the top part of a truss. The top cord is one of the 3 key components of any truss. Along with the bottom cord and webs, the top cord creates the upper perimeter of the roof. It is designed to resist live loads such as wind loads. The web is described as members that join the top and bottom cords to form the triangular patterns typical of trusses. These members typically carry axial forces. The web is one of the 3 key components of any truss. In addition to the top and bottom cords, webs carry axial forces that eventually transfer to the truss bearings. The truss plate is described as truss plates are manufactured with steel and are designed to laterally transmit loads in wood. Truss plates allow dimensional lumber to be fastened together in a plane, in numerous configurations, to create a truss using the properties of triangulation. The red circle marks the location of the break, not a surface split. You can follow the top cord from the left of the chimney opening, and to the right of the hole that leads down into Grandma's room all the way back to the first web member. There, you can see a break in the top cord. According to the adjuster, the break in the cord isn't considered structural damage and doesn't need to be repaired. I'd like to point out again that this damage, along with all the other damage inside, is directly in line with the chimney. However, he insists that the wind couldn't have caused this damage, and that the chimney being ripped from my house couldn't have caused it either. I can't wait until we get to my daughter's room. This time, follow the top cord from the right side of the chimney hole up to the top truss plate. You can see how the webs are offset by about the same distance that the patio rafters have moved. The whole connection appears to have come loose. When you look at all the other roof trusses, none of them show this damage, just the one that's connected to the fireplace via the top cord. Next, we are going to look at a broken web. I believe this is a hip truss. Either way, it was doubled up by the engineer who originally designed this roof to better distribute the load. This broken web is located about 5 feet to the right of the fireplace. It is also directly under where we saw the corner shingle peeled up earlier. It's interesting that the only issue in the attic he addressed in his report was the break that is hard to get to show up on camera. Not sure how he missed them. It had to be those good neighbor blinders he had on. I'm not going to make you look at all the web and roof decking cracks again, or the floor trusses in front of the fireplace. This video is already a lot longer than I thought it would be. Let's continue with Mr. Simpson's report. He goes on to say, the walls and roof of the wood-framed patio do not show structural damage or displacement due to the wind or fallen chimney box. Mr. Simpson, how many bounce marks do you see? I don't want to put you down, but come on. You're honestly telling us that you did not and cannot see the movement on the back porch rafters? I want to know where you get your jobs from. You don't have a website or any real online presence. You have, however, had an active P license since 1982. Super impressive and concerning at the same time. Are you a member of the Texas Society of Professional Engineers? And is that why you don't need an online presence to bring in business? Or is it that you work for State Farm and just run under a DBA to keep that conflict of interest bell from ringing too loudly? I'm putting my money on the latter. Let's continue with Mr. Simpson's report. He mentions, elsewhere in the room, the drywall ceiling shows old water stains, which were caused by an air conditioning condensation leak upstairs. First off, there's only one stain from the AC. It happened a couple of weeks before the storm, caused by a faulty switch that failed to shut off the AC when the pan wasn't draining. The AC did not cause the water damage under the upstairs bathroom. He continues, there are no drywall cracks or water damage in the walls or ceiling of the living room, which can be attributed to the April 28, 2024 storm. I won't go off on this again, but it just doesn't make sense. A giant hole in the roof leading to the first floor, but no water damage caused by the storm? Moving on. He then writes about Layla's, my mother-in-law's room. I observed no evidence of rainwater penetration through the ceiling or wall and no water damage on the floor. The slightly ridged edges of the flooring strips were caused by long-term wear and tear. In my daughter's room, he says, the ceilings and floor of this room have no storm-related water damage, cracking, or movement. There is a drywall seam crack at the top of the closet on the wall next to the chimney enclosure. This crack may have been caused by the transient jarring effect when the chimney box detached from the roof. There is no structural movement associated with this crack on the exterior wall or roof or in the attic above the closet. Let's pause here. A transient jarring effect generally refers to a temporary, sudden vibration or shock that happens in a structure. It describes an event where a system is subjected to an abrupt force or vibration that lasts only for a short period but can still have noticeable impacts. High winds, whether from a tornado or another storm, and sudden pressure changes can both cause this. When a cold front hits a warm front, it can create storms, tornadoes, microbursts, and sudden pressure changes. You pick the cause. My wife says tornado, and I agree. There are two cracks in this closet, not just one. Both cracks are on the back wall. One connects to the attic, and the other connects to the chimney run. Is there a bigger issue here than we originally thought? Why did he leave the second crack off his report? When grabbing a still from a video, I noticed water running down the top cord of the roof trusses. This truss sits directly above my daughter's closet, right where I told them water was coming in. I painted her room with a thick, high-gloss paint, so it's no surprise that any water staining wouldn't be visible. But there are several spots where the paint has pulled away from the sheetrock. I didn't repaint the inside of her closet, so the water staining is easy to see here, unless, of course, you're wearing your State Farm blinders. He's willing to say that the sheetrock joint crack was caused by this transient jarring effect. But somehow the back patio rafters didn't experience the same diagnostic. Do we need to count the bounce marks again? Maybe I should start calling them transient jarring effect marks instead. Lastly, he did mention there was no movement associated with the crack. This broken truss web is located under the corner shingle that is peeled up. If you look at the truss to the left of the fireplace, you'll find the web members have shifted inside of the truss. Both are connected to my daughter's closet. Now, if you follow the truss to the right of the chimney, you'll find the broken top cord at the truss plate. You can follow this bottom cord in Layla's room, where Mr. Simpson didn't see any water damage. That brings up another good point. Why did the structural engineer report that he didn't see any water damage to the ceilings and floors when he was brought in to evaluate whether the attic and patio were structurally sound? He's a State Farm goon, that's why. But if you follow this cord out into the hall, it lines up with one end of the hallway crack. And the other side lines up with the wall in my daughter's closet, which is shared by both the closet and the chimney run. The busted board in the floor truss. The header that does magic tricks. Water goes in one side and comes out the other. The crack that showed up where the busted floor truss meets the first floor bathroom wall. I want to pursue legal action against State Farm due to the mishandling of our claim following significant storm damage to my house on April 28, 2024. From the outset, the adjuster's work was subpar. When we expressed concerns and requested a second adjuster, we were denied. Then the first adjuster called us, accusing us of lying on him. His hostile approach to scheduling a second visit was unprofessional. In the meantime, the house flooded again. When the first adjuster returned, his focus was solely on the new water damage in my mother-in-law's room, not the structural damage caused by the storm. We waited 4 months before another adjuster was assigned. This adjuster openly admitted to not knowing how to handle the situation and stated that his supervisors were also unqualified. After a series of back-and-forth discussions about the chimney, he finally agreed to visit the house but refused to inspect the porch rafter damage. His conduct raised serious concerns about the purpose of his visit. Furthermore, the adjuster said something to our local agent that prompted him to accuse us of adding things on and insurance fraud. Then he tells us he doesn't have to answer our calls. We filed a complaint with TDI, then called State Farm to have our agent changed. State Farm shouldn't be making money on us right now, much less him. We are stuck with State Farm until the house is fixed, but we shouldn't have to be stuck with the agent. Then we were convinced by an adjuster to allow another expert adjuster to assess the property. This adjuster, though experienced, was ill-equipped for the job and refused to use our ladder to inspect the attic. State Farm arranged for a structural engineer, whom they claimed was a neutral party, to come look at the trusses and rafters. However, after going over his report, we no longer believe this assessment was impartial. We have been clear in stating the damages we know about. The damage to the porch should be an obvious indicator to anyone involved in the case. It's telling that every State Farm representative has either denied the damage, downplayed it, or refused to inspect it altogether. The situation has left us in a dire living condition, especially since my mother-in-law has COPD and my wife relies on a wheelchair. We should have been granted temporary housing while we were stuck waiting on new adjusters, and adjusters who didn't know what they were doing or are ill-equipped to assess known damages that have been reported multiple times. We should have been granted temporary housing until our house is properly restored. This goes far beyond the inconvenience of a simple home repair. I feel like we have the grounds and documentation for a bad faith claim here.